Okay, so welcome guys to another video. I just noticed unfortunately that I'll have to do some verification before I'll be able to upload the links to the various tutorials. So since I haven't yet done it because I don't have a smartphone at the moment, what I have decided to do is to use a link shortener to make it easy for you to access the specific kata that we'll be working on your end. So for today's kata, this is the link. Right, I'm doing it just like you would. bit.ly/8KYU-3. Okay, and then you hit enter. It should take you directly to the kata that we will be solving today. So this is the kata. Find the first non-consecutive number. Your description. Your task is to find the first element of an array that is not consecutive. Right. By not consecutive, we mean not exactly one larger than the previous element of the array. If we have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, then 1, 2, 3, and 4 are all consecutive, but 6 is not, because the next number after 4 is 5 and not 6. And the difference between 6 and 4 is not 1, it's 2. So anytime the difference between the number, the first number, and then the next number is greater than 1, then it means that we have a non-consecutive number. Okay. If the whole array is consecutive, then we return null. Okay. The array will always have at least 2 elements, so we don't have to worry about that, because they said our array will always have at least 2 elements, so 2 or more. And all the elements will be numbers, so we don't have to check that also. The numbers will also be unique, so we don't have to sort it out, because if the numbers are not unique, we'll have to sort the array and then do it in an ascending order to make our whole work easy. But in this case, the array will be unique and it will be in ascending order, so meaning a lot of the pre-processing has been done for us. The numbers could be positive or negative though, so we have to be mindful of that. And the first non-consecutive could be either. So the first non-consecutive number could be either positive or negative. Okay, so what we are supposed to do, so this is what we are supposed to do. Sorry, this is what we are supposed to do, but this is like an extra. So for now, we'll not focus on this extras, we'll rather focus on this part, the main one. So let's train. Alright, so we've already read the task. Now we'll have to, before you approach problems, before you approach the kata, you have to first have a mind map of what you are coming to do. Right, you have to know the processes that your data is going to pass through, how you are going to deal with that data and obtain what you want or what you need, and understand the problem and know what the problem demands from you. So in this case, I'm going to my whiteboard. Okay, all right, let's refresh and let's clear everything. Okay, so now they said we have an array, so I have an array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10. They said we should return the first non-consecutive number, so we don't really care about any other number, any other non-consecutive number. Immediately we get the first non-consecutive number, we can just end what we are doing and return that number. Okay, so what I will do now, there's this concept of loops. So what I will do is I'll go through and then loop. So now when I enter the array, I pick the first element and pick the second element, then compare. I'll compare this element to this element and see the difference. If the difference is equal to 1, then it means this one is a consecutive number, right? That's simple. And then I'll move again. So at first I'm here, I'm taking this and this, then I'll move here, then I'll take this and this. Now the interesting thing is that this can work easily because arrays use indices. That's to say that if you have an array and you want to access a specific element of the array, you can just use the index. Sorry for writing 0. What I meant to do was write index. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate this in the tutor, the visualizer, right? So now if I define an array, say an array of names, okay, and the names are Kofi, John, Ama, and Kojo. Okay, this is my array of names. If I want to access the first element, which is Kofi, right, which is Kofi, what I will do is, let's say I want to print it, so I'm going to print names, and I'll bring this square bracket, which is ready to take the index. Now in Python we use, let me say, zero-based indexing. So the first element has an index of 0, the second element has an index of 1, third has an index of 2, and so on and so forth. So in this case, to access the first element, I'm going to use an index of 0. So if I run this, I execute this, what we should see, right, in the output here should be Kofi. So I'm not going to run through step by step, I'm just going to jump, and then you see that Kofi is at the output. Now say we change this, right, and then we made it 1, and then we execute, right, we should see John. Okay, we can try up to the last point, which is 2. So 0, 1, 2. Sorry, 0, 1, 2, 3 rather. So we can try 3 and then see what will happen. We get Kojo as expected. Now some of you might be asking, what if we put 4? Now when we put 4, we are going to get an error because the array doesn't have any other element other than that. It ends at Kojo, so the last index for this array is 3. When you put 4, you get an error, right? So it says list index out of range. Our index is out of range, so it cannot access any element there. There is nothing there that it can get within the array. So when you go beyond bounds, you start to get an error, and this is very necessary for us to understand. So this is how arrays work, right? Okay, so now that we know that, what are we trying to do? We are trying to loop through. Now I would like us to start here, right, before we move to the main thing. So first we get an array, so let me copy this, let's come and put it here, okay, and then we'll write it and then we'll test it. So we are going to be testing it with this array. Okay, array is equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. So with this array, we all know, right, that the first non-consecutive integer in this case is 6. So we are trying to define this function to return 6 when this array is passed. So what I'll do is, I'll do result is equal to, I'll call the function first non-consecutive, and then I'll pass this array, okay, and then we'll print the result. So once we get the result of 6, we know that yes, our code is functioning properly. Now what do we want to do in our function? Once we receive the array, what we want to do is loop through the array. Okay, now how we can loop through the array is we can use the index, as I already explained. Okay, yes, but before we use the index, we have to know the size of the array, otherwise we will not know where to end. We already know we are supposed to start from 0, okay, but where do we end? So to know where to end, we need to find the size of the array. So we can do that using a function in Python known as len, right? So there's a function in Python called len, which finds the length, right, of a data type. Then put it this way. Okay, So in this case, it will find the length of the array. So if I say size of array, right, it will be equal to len of ARR. So now we have the size of the array. Now I can say for I in the range from, so now when you are using the range function, range is also a function in Python. I can just type in here size of array, and what the range function will do is that it will loop this, it will run this for loop from 0, right? I will hold the value from 0 all the way to size of array minus 1, which is exactly what we want, because for an array, right, when we go back to the example I gave, no, not here, okay, this is not the example, but fine. When we consider this example, right, this has an array size of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right? This has a size of 8. But since our index starts from 0, the last index will be 7, right? So the same thing in this for loop. Our I will start from 0, which is our index, starts from 0, but it will have to end at 1 less than the size of the array. Okay, so that's the reason why I'm maintaining this. You can also do it manually, do it 0 comma and then put size of the array, but since it's already been taken care of when we do it like this, then there's no need. Then the next thing I want to do is create a variable to hold the how should I put this? So now in my explanation I was like, I'll stand here and I'll take this element, right? I'll take this element. Okay, I think I have to refresh this. Okay, so I was saying I'll take this element and then this element and then compare. Then I'll take this element and this element, this element and this element and then compare. Then I'll take this and compare. So what I want to do is I want to name this element. The first element I'll take A and then the next one B. So now in the first loop, my A will be 1 and then my B will be 2. Then in the next loop, my A will be 2, right? And then my B will be 3, right? Our B is always the number after the A. We are trying to move in this fashion. Okay, so now you can see that our A initially has an index of 0 and our B is the element with the index of 1. Then what do? We increase those indices. Okay, so when we come back here, what we can say is A is equal to I, right? And B is equal to, A is equal to this, the element within the array with an index of I, and B is equal to the element with an index of I plus 1. So when I is 0, we'll have A being equal to the first element and B being equal to the second element. Let me show you. It will look like this. You have ARR 0 and you have here ARR 1. That's when I is 0. Then when I is 1, you have here to be 1 and you have here to be 2, right? So it's working perfectly just as we want. Now what do we want to do? We want to do this. If B minus A is greater than 1, right, then we just return B, because if B minus A is greater than 1, it means B is not consecutive. So we can just end there. We don't have to continue with the loop. Otherwise, so let me do else if B minus A is equal to 1, then we just do nothing. We just keep going through the loop. Else to do nothing. Sorry, this code is not correct. Right, it's rather just supposed to be else do nothing. Okay, so do nothing. You can use pass or you can use continue, which will just continue the loop. Okay, so now if b minus a is greater than 1, we should return b and all that. Now when we run this code, let's see whether we'll get 6. So I'm not going to go through step by step, I'm just going to jump to the last end. We get 6, amazing, which is great. But what if our array is not having that? So let me modify the array. I just want to show the flaw in this code. So I'm going to modify the array and let's visualize the execution. So in this case there is nothing, right? We are supposed to return now. Okay, but we are already having an issue. Sorry, let's edit and include the fact that we are supposed to return now when it goes through the loop. Okay, so if it goes through the loop and it finds a consecutive number, it should return that consecutive number. Okay, but if it goes through the loop and doesn't find that consecutive number, so meaning this for loop has ended and it still didn't find a consecutive number, then what we'll do here is we'll return now, and now in Python is none, right? That's the keyword. Okay, so now let's visualize the execution and see why we are getting this error. Now when we visualize the execution, it's not even running, it's giving us this list index out of range error, which we know is similar to the error that we had when we were using an index that was greater than the available index for the array. Now the reason why this is happening is because when we get to the last element, right, when we get to the last element, which is here 4, with this one having the index of 3, right, a will be equal to, sorry, let me just type it so that you see. So what we'll have here, we'll have a, right, to be equal to ARR3. Remember we are dealing with this array. Okay, so 0, 1, 2, 3. A will be equal to AR3, but what will we have as a problem? B will be equal to ARR4, but there is no ARR4. This is 0, this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. There is no 4 for this array. So that's the reason why we are getting that error. So we have to deal with that error. We have to make sure that this code, all this our code here, is being executed only when our I is less than 2 less of the size of the array. Sorry if what I'm saying is confusing, but what I'm trying to say is we have to make sure that we kind of reduce the I. We have to make sure the I never gets to this last value. The I should end here. So it should be 0, 1, 2, so that it doesn't get here. So one way of doing that, right? One way of doing that is to just subtract 1 from here. So once we subtract 1 from here, we know that it will never get to this B here, the index here. We will never get to an extra value beyond the array. It will always be within range. So if we visualize this execution, it should solve the problem, right? And surely enough it does. It runs perfectly, right? And we are getting null as our result. Another way of doing it, right? That's just one way of doing it, and it's kind of simple. Another way of doing it is just to come here and to say if I is greater or equal to the size of the array, right? If I is greater or equal to the size of the array, then you do nothing. You just continue. Else, so else meaning that it is less, right? Else you do all this. And I know it's kind of, as you see, it's not completely logical, so this is not a good way of doing it, but it works. It works. Once you understand, okay, no, it doesn't work, sorry. I think I need to do something here. Okay, so I've seen the error now. It's supposed to be if I is greater than or equal to the size of array minus 1. right? We have to take care of that extra one that we are adding here. So if I is greater than or equal to the size of array minus 1, then we can break, else we do this. So when we visualize the execution, you see that that works perfectly and returns null. But I'm sure none of you like this approach, so we'll just take it back to the other approach where all we have to do is edit our range here, subtract 1, and everything is taken care of as simply as it is. So this is it. So if I modify this array, right, I put in 7, then I put 9, then I put 10, we should get 7 as a result, because 7 is the first non-consecutive number. So if I visualize this execution and jump to the last, we get 7. Alright, so this should work. All we have to do now is copy this code, come here at training ground and paste it. And then what we have to do next is test, and hopefully it works. And we pass all the basic test cases. Now we can attempt, and sure enough it passes every test case. So this is a simple one, kind of a huge leap from the first two, since the first two were much simpler than this. This required much more thinking, much more analysis, but it's all good. The more you solve, the more you learn, the more you increase your knowledge, the more it becomes easier to process these things, right? Okay, so that's it for today. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments below, and thank you.